This is the Indianness podcast, stories of success from leaders and change makers of Indian origin. Why have Indians achieved success across so many different disciplines around the globe? I have no idea, but let's find out together because every story is unique. I'm very excited to have Rama Akkiraju with us today. She is the Vice President of Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning for NVIDIA IT, the company that's at the forefront of the AI revolution. She has also been at leadership roles at IBM. I invited her on this show as her journey has been full of self learning, and she has a unique insight into what it takes to learn your way to a leadership role. Welcome, Rama. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for having me.
Rama, as you know, that we basically look at the journeys of change makers like you, and to chronicle that journey for inspiration to others, you kind of have to go right to the beginning of their journey. So let's start with the beginning, as to tell us and tell our listeners where were you born, and tell us about your parents.
I was born in South India in the city of Hyderabad, Sanjay. That's where I did my schooling till my engineering. My parents, uh, I think, immigrated from some interior parts of Andhra Pradesh to Hyderabad for my dad's job. My dad worked for the state government, and my mom was a homemaker. And as with any middle class Indian family, you grow up with your mom teaching you, the moral compass and the values for the rest of your life, and dad teaching you to dream big and aim high, and that's how my childhood was.
That sounds very interesting. So, dad's job, tell us a little bit about dad's job, Rama.
He worked for the state government, uh, in different capacities over the years. We started out. I remember as almost like a lower middle class family, probably. And by the time he retired, he crawled his way up. I would say to middle class. Um, what exactly he did? He worked in different state government programs that would distribute uh, rice grains and clothing and other things to underprivileged um, families in the state and the city and such. And he had the role to manage the procurement and the distribution of those things. At least that's the last role that I remember him doing. I'm sure over his career he did a number of things.
Yeah. Uh, at that time of India, which, hopefully, same time, government jobs were a big thing because it provided stability, security, etc., right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was almost the case that you made it for the rest of your life after graduating from your college if you landed either a state government or a central government job. If you are working for any private company, that is, it's a risky proposition. Your pension is not guaranteed. So even it's difficult for men, I believe, to find the right kind of suities or girls for those boys that work in private sector back in the days when India was not fully liberalized. And basically your dream is to land yourself a job in the state government or central government. That's how my dad's generation was. Thankfully, by the time we were growing up, me and my siblings, things were changing. India was opening up more, and the IT sector, I wouldn't say it was fully there yet. I mean, computers and such still were not that common in universities and all, but um, Infosys was there, Wipro was there. At least the beginning of the first generation of these consulting companies were starting and such. So it was a very different time back in um, the 90s when I was growing up.
But yeah, as you said, it was right at the beginning. But did dad have to travel much for his job, or was he stationed just in Hyderabad?
No, he wasn't traveling. We were just, yes, different in Hyderabad.
And uh, siblings, tell us a little bit about your siblings, Rama.
Our family was a family of four children. I have two sisters and a brother, and my two siblings and brother, actually all three of them, studied in government high schools. So you can government schools rather. You can imagine um, how situations were back then. Only people who were well to do enough could afford private school education, even though these private some of many of the private schools were just local schools with not that many facilities or anything to really boast about. But still, yeah, my siblings all went to government run high schools or schools, and I was the first one in the family, as the last one in the family actually, uh, to go to private schools. So that kind of shows, I suppose, by the time I was 5 years old, maybe whatever that little bit of monthly fee my dad and mom could afford, so they sent me to a private school. I still studied in local Telugu medium, which is my mother tongue, schools till I was in fifth grade, and starting sixth grade, I switched over to the so-called English medium, which is what much of the middle class wants to land up in to set yourself up for the future. But yeah, my siblings, uh, they all went through and they did fine in their lives later on, thankfully, thanks to the grounding principles that our parents instilled in us right from our childhood.
Uh, but just a question, Rama. How come you were picked to go to private school and not, let's say, your brother is elder to you, right? And you are number two, and then you have two other sisters.
No, I was the last one.
Oh, so you were the youngest one. Oh, okay, okay.
So by then, I think the family situation was slowly improving to the point that they could probably afford. I think the fee was 25 rupees per month at that time for a private school. So 25 rupees was, if it had to be paid, it would add up to what, 100 rupees for four children altogether per month. That would have been a lot for my dad back in the days. So, but I suppose since I was the last one, and by that time things have financially improved just a little bit, enough for me to go to at least a school that was charging $25 a month or so. Yeah.
And that private school was better than what your brother and sisters were, learning. How would you, differentiate between the two?
I'm not really sure actually, because I never went to the public school and they never went to this school. So I don't have much to compare. But I don't think it was that big of a deal or a big difference or anything. Yeah.
Did you make any friends at that time while you were going into this private school?
Of course, and as with any kid, studying in school, yeah, of course, I had a lot of friends.
And school was close by to the house?
Yeah, I used to walk to school. Yes, it had to be a local one. Yeah, yeah.
Any subjects that you were gravitating early on towards?
Well, I enjoyed. I loved studying all the subjects. I didn't particularly, I would say, gravitate or anything. I loved math. I loved math. I also loved Telugu, or my mother tongue language. Yeah, my family had a lineage of poets in Telugu. So there was a lot of literature, reading, poetry going on in and around the house. So I loved Telugu in all subjects, really. Nothing all that much to talk about. But I definitely, if I have to pick, I say I did love math.
You loved math there. And your brother, how much older is he
He
to
was
you?
3 years older than me. I would say he and my dad were two, folks who really were very influential in me becoming who I am today. My brother, because he was just old enough um, for me to still kind of have a conversation about what I was studying and what I want to become. And I was always following his footsteps. Basically, when I had any questions about math, he was 3 years older than me. I would go to him and he would help me out and teach me things. As he was growing up, he wanted to study engineering. He prepared for the test and got into an engineering college. And so I would just simply follow his footsteps. I said, brother became an engineer, I want to become one. When he went to the US to study, I set the same goal for myself. I said, I have somebody to look up to, that opens up opportunities for you. So I want to do the same. And I would say my dad has been very influential because you know, um, growing up in middle class India and with the three girls that he has to marry off, right? You can imagine um, how one might, what kind of mindset one might be in, thinking that, okay, I'll let you study, but I don't want to take big loans to send you to the US or anything like that. But my dad never held us back, and any of us actually, a boy or a girl, he never differentiated. And towards the end of his career almost is when I was getting ready to go study here in the United States. And he did not hesitate to take a loan at that time. And he said, in fact, I was even hesitating to say, Dad, is it something that I should even shoot for? And he said, go for it. It doesn't matter. I'll take a loan and I should be able to pay it off. Don't worry about it. Or maybe after you study and get a job, you can pay it off. But don't deprive yourself of your opportunities and go study. So he was the one. And he did the same to all four of us, actually, to my sisters and brother. And so I'm so grateful to my dad for being that person who treated his all his children equally, girls and boys, and never held us back. And in fact, encouraged us all the way through to dream big, aim big, and to go for opportunities. So yeah, my dad, brother, I would say, have been two influential figures while I was growing up.
Yeah, very impressive. So, in kind of role models for you also. Your brother was helping you with homework, but dad never differentiated in terms of, opportunities. Sometimes that happens. So, that's phenomenal. And mom, what was her role when you were growing up?
Mom, of course, played a critical role in keeping us all grounded, right? With teaching us the moral principles, the value of personal integrity, and of course, exposing us to so many of um, Indian mythology and our epics and stories and fables and the values from all of those. And always there to support, basically, just as a mom would. I'm just, yeah, so grateful for both my parents and the family that I grew up in. Without their support, continued support, uh, I wouldn't have been able to make it to the United States to study or to be where I'm at. And one other thing I have to recall, is my mom read a lot. She's a voracious reader. Every night she would sit and read so many books to us. Sometimes even when we're doing our homeworks, she would come and say, I read this wonderful poem, I have to tell you about it. And she would just take 5 minutes, and she would ask us to take a pause, and she would read the poem and explain that. And that's how she inculcated some of the reading habits and appreciating literature and the poetry and those sort of things. And also in my introduction to music, South Indian classical music, Carnatic music, came to me from my mom. She would play it on the radio all the time and introduce us to some of the musicians, and make us listen. Of course, back in the days, we were more interested in listening to old Hindi film songs. But thanks to the seeds that she instilled in us back then in art and literature and reading and poetry, you know, uh, when I grew up uh, and needed something to to really take mind off of things and to stay grounded, I go back to music now, and to classical literature and arts and those types of things. So all of those things came from mom, I would say.
So, what a great balance. The culture, the spirituality, and all that was balanced by mom, while dad was supporting, brother was like a mentor. So, it was those three things kind of played a big role. Uh, from music, were you just a listener, or were you actually used to sing or play or anything like that?
Oh, it was just mostly listening. I learned a little bit of Carnatic classical when I was young, but I picked it up later on. After I came to the US, I found some good teachers and I picked it up, and my daughter now learns and plays an instrument, Indian, actually, national instrument called veena, the string instrument, and she also learns Hindustani classical music. So that seed that my mom instilled back, when I was a child, although at the time I was a rebel and I wanted to go back to film music, it stays with you. It stays with you, and then you kind of go back to it when you're older and a little bit more wiser. Yeah.
I know. She was, and her music was mainly in Telugu, while you wanted to listen to All India Radio and all that other Amin Sayani and all those great Hindi songs at that time, right?
I wouldn't say I was always probably a decade or two behind it. I enjoyed more of the my dad's generations, my mom's generations.
Which one was your dad's generation song?
Uh, these were Devanand's ways. Yeah,
Kishore Kumar, Mohammed Rafi.
Ahmad Rafi, Kishore Kumar.
They're bringing back some great memories. Some fantastic singers for people who might be listening, and wondering what we're talking about. But just uh, that time music was different. Let's just put it that way. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the 80s and 90s music, I don't know, I couldn't somehow, although I was growing up in that era, I was never really drawn to that music. I was always, as I said, one or two generations behind. I gravitated to some of the old ones, lot more.
They say, Rama, that sometimes music and songs are tied to memories also.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that true for you? Do you, when you some listen to some song, does it ever take you back in time?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Back in the days, there used to be only one TV channel, right? Doordarshan. And for a number of years, actually, when I was growing up, we didn't even have a TV at our house. We would go to neighbors' house if they would let us in um, to watch Sunday night movies or something like that. Uh, After I was probably in high school or so when we could afford a television set, and that too is a very unreliable one that you don't know when you turn it on whether it would turn on or not, and the transistor based ones. I have so many memories of some of those Doordarshan programs and some you know pro music and movies maybe that I've seen.
Yeah. Would all of you sit together and watch some of those shows and things like that? The brothers and sisters, or
Yeah, because there is only, if you live in a house with maybe 3 rooms and, there's a kitchen, there is probably 1 or 2 bedrooms, and then there is the living room, and so, there were some shows. It's not like we all had to, do our studies in the evenings, but there were 1 or 2 shows that we all would watch, yeah, and, we would all sit together and watch. Those were different times. Now we all have our own devices, right? Nobody sits together.
nobody? And if you're talking to people, you're communicating through devices. But great memories, great memories. Um, so, as you were studying further, anything in sports? Were you involved in any sports at that time, Ram?
I wish I were. No, but the answer is no, simply because it was not part of the education system at all. Nothing organized sports, just playing as a kid outdoors with neighborhood kids is something is how things were at the time, but nothing organized. Schools barely even had any playgrounds. Um, if you could have classrooms, that's that's the most you can ask for. So nothing organized as such.
So, just tell us a little more. So, as you were going on, then You did your high school also in the same school? You were all the years in the same school, Rama?
No, I mean, I think I did till fifth or sixth grade in one school. After that,
Then you moved into English medium after that.
yeah, and at that time we moved from one place in Hyderabad to another place. My dad was trying to build a house. You know, our house was built over like 5 6 years, and with one room at a time, kind of thing. But when we moved into our new house that was still being built at the time, I moved my school as well. So that school, in that school, I studied from sixth to 10th, and then after that, of course, in Indian system, there is a plus two, which is a different it's called college, right? Actually, you go to that to do the 11th and 12th, and then go to the engineering college.
So how was that move to a new school and plus also in new language, right? Was that any issues with that at all?
See, to be frank, although it was English medium, so to speak, um, it's not like the teachers were so fluent in English or anything. So there was a lot of Telugu being spoken all around. Um, Maybe a little bit of class time, lecture time, and what you have to write in was in English. It was difficult for me for sure at the time, making the switch from English to, I mean, Telugu to English. But I used to study a lot. I used to, the education system is very different back then. Things are changing now. It's mostly, you're taught something, you have some questions, you're given some answers, you memorize those, and you just go write those. So if you're good at memorizing, you wouldn't have so much trouble. um, yeah, so it was, I mean, it was a little difficult, but I wouldn't say it was that hard or anything.
Okay. And you are still enjoying math and those subjects, right? You continue, yeah. And then you moved to a different school for your plus two, where that was also in Hyderabad. And what kind of school was that?
It was one of those colleges that offers the 2 years of intermediate education. Yeah.
Tough or same ish? No, was it academically you found it harder, the same, etc.?
No, I wouldn't say it was hard or anything. It was that you see that 2 year period is considered to be the most critical time that shapes the rest of your life, because you're studying for your next college phase, and you have to decide by the that is the time when you decide whether you're going for math related or biology related or commerce related subjects. And once you pick, you got to go deep to study for the entrance exams. So those 2 years were like a blur. Basically, you're a bookworm, you're studying, you don't know what's happening in the world. You're not so engaged with anybody outside. You put your heads down, because if you don't study well during those 2 years, you are done for your life. You missed your opportunity for your life, and that's how it is. So those 2 years, you just forget about everything and you study hard.
Take extra classes, prep classes, this, that. Oh my God, it's a lot of pressure. It's too much pressure, I think. But anyway, it was a lot of pressure on
Yeah,
you at
and
that
that
time.
continues to be the case even now for most people who want to
Yeah,
make it
yeah,
to good, either
yeah,
engineering, medical, or whatever the field that they want to go in.
yeah. Uh, so, so tell us then what happened. What were the results of your heads down hard work that you did for 2 years? How did you do? And then, based on that, tell us where was the journey taking you?
Well, as I said, my brother was already studying in an engineering college by then. He was 3 years older to me. So I had my path set. I liked math. I wanted to go into engineering field, so I studied for one of the state level entrance exams. And again, there were IITs. My brother, for whatever reason, because there is no precedence in the family, he didn't have any role models. He was the one who was paving the path for himself. Um, so
So he paid a price for that.
he aimed for that's not what I'm saying. He aimed for local state level engineering college entrance exam. And for me, if that's what my brother did, that's what I would do. You know, Be, because my brother didn't. study for IT exam. There was no precedence. I didn't even shoot for that. So I didn't study for that. So that's how influential my brother was, and that's how, you know, the the role models, later on also, yeah, in your life can be. So they can be, you follow them, you follow the path. Depending on what you know, how much you know, you will set your goals for it. And if you only know so much, that's all you would set your your goals for. So, but I went for the state level engineering entrance exam, and I did well enough to get into a government college, which is a very good um, outcome at that time, because private engineering colleges, first of all, were not considered to be the same level of quality, in terms of education and facilities and such. Things are changing now. It may be kind of reversing, but yeah. And I went to study at Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University. It's called JNTU, College of Engineering, in Anantapur. So I went and stayed in a hostel and did my engineering in electronics and communications.
Wow. So, first time you move out of the house to stay in a dorm, so to speak, right? So, how was that? And then tell us about what was it for academics and things of that nature. What was that like?
Many in India go through this experience. When you go to engineering colleges, you're likely, going out of state or staying in dorms. And I think it's the best time of your life. As a student, you and you're making friends. You're learning to be independent on your own. And but I was a very focused, dedicated student all my life. So I you know I gravitated towards making friends who are like me, who were also bookworms, who would study a lot. So we would, I found some roommates who would just focus on our studies, basically. We just go to college, do our stuff well, study, do our exams well, plan for our future. But then definitely best times of our lives, student days, and we have lots of good friends whom we still are in touch with and meet often and meet, and exchange notes from those days to now.
Wow. And what kind of engineering were you studying, Rama?
Electronics and communications is it called? Yeah.
Good. And you were at that time you slowly started gravitating towards electronics, maybe computers. That at that time itself.
I when depending on the rank that you get the branch, electrical or mechanical or civil, or there was a whole pecking order. You it, this is These are some of the things that should change. But if people should go into the field that they're interested in. But it's not like, for me, everything was an open book. It didn't matter to me what I studied. I just wanted to study and do well, and think about the future later. So yeah, I got into electronics as the branch, based on, I guess, where I was placed in the entrance exam, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. But yeah, there were some courses that I took related to computers, and I took some outside classes to basic programming language at the time, and just to prepare myself up for things in computer science, because it's pretty clear that computer science is where the much of the industry was going, and that's where the opportunities were, between electronics and communications, hardware and software. Basically, that's where the opportunities were, majority of them, more so in software for India at that time, and continues to be so. um, uh, yeah, so that's how the foundations were laid for computer science work that I would do later on.
And at that time, what was brother doing? He had graduated.
My brother was already in the US studying, because of 3 years ahead. Yeah, he had come to the US to study, and then that's how the first introduction to, through his letters and through his photographs that he would send home, our introduction to student life in the US, and what it's like, um, to be in the US. And he would travel during the holidays with friends and send some pictures of different places. And yeah, it was, for a family who has not traveled much, even in India, to speak of, let alone um, see the outside world. Those photographs and his letters were a window into the outside world and to the US. For us, I remember we all used to wait for those and anxiously read those in that blue. Um, what are those the letters called? Airmail thing that that students could afford. They could not afford letters and envelopes because the stamps would cost more. Uh,
It was all one page. It would be folded. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so you were really looking forward to that. Now, tell me, what about your two sisters at that time? He went. You were in engineering college in Anpur. What about them? What were they doing?
my sisters, they studied, they got their jobs, then they got married, and so they were in India. Yeah, my elder sister was a teacher. She became a principal very quickly after that. My second sister is a banker.
Wonderful. So, brother was obviously sending information, and that was kind of opening up that window. So now you're getting close to graduating from college. So, was it clear to you in your mind that you're going to apply to go to the US?
Absolutely, yeah. So it was very clear. Starting from third year or so of engineering, you would study for GRE, TOEFL, the exams that you have to pass to apply. And and again, I didn't even um, have to get anything. My brother's books were there, GRE preparation book, and basically, those were all hand me downs for me, and I just prepared with those. And
Maybe he had highlighted some portions of the books for himself that could be handy for you.
yeah, it was. Yeah, I was just kind of basically following his recipe book. Yeah.
So you gave your GRE TOEFL in the third year, and basically were preparing then to come to the US. So then you graduated, and mom and dad said yes, and dad obviously said he'll take a loan to send you. That was fantastic. So let's say you graduated, then what? Applied to some US universities?
Yeah, and I got into a couple and I came to the Utah State University to study computer science. I wanted to do computer science, and so I did that.
This was in Salt Lake.
Mhm. Salt Lake, well, it's in a place called Logan, actually. Utah State University is in, which is 90 miles from Salt Lake City.
So how was that experience? Hyderabad to Salt Lake is a little bit of a cultural difference. Would you say that?
Yeah, but there is quite a bit of a Indian community, I mean, by even in those days. The snow, the weather was all completely new, but I enjoyed every moment of it. Salt Lake City and Logan feels like second home to me
Why did you enjoy it so much?
because everything is new, right? You're up for so many. It's an adventure in your life. You're all by yourself. Um, you're in a new place, new country, new culture, snow that you don't see, you saw only in the movies. Um, and it's not something that you can even relate to. So it's a great adventure actually, and a learning experience. I would say I had so much trouble in the first semester actually following the accent of some of the professors. Some professors would speak so fast, and it used to be like I had to keep all my senses up, so much, and I'm parsing one word that the professor spoke when he's already on the fifth word, and I have to really pay super attention to follow the accent. Of course, after some more listening, because I wasn't that exposed to.
Were you recording the sessions or we were just listening at that time?
Yeah, no, I didn't have any recording devices, and I guess I wasn't thinking that much. But I know actually some of my other Asian students who used to do that, and I would be so impressed with how much hard work that they would be putting to understand that. I used to have a Japanese classmate who was an au pair for quite a few years, and then she decided to do her bachelor's or master's or something. But although she was an au pair for a number of years here, she couldn't. She was not fluent in English, and definitely not so much in listening and understanding accents. Uh, she would record every class and she would play it multiple times and take very detailed notes in Japanese and to study. So if a lecture went on for 1 hour, she would have 4 hours of work to process that 1 hour lecture, and that's only for one class. Oh my God. Yeah, there are international students like that. Thankfully, I mean, for me, it wasn't that bad, but it took me a little bit of an adjustment of a semester or so to, especially to one or two professors, I think, whose the accent was something very, very alien to me. But then you get used to it.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think we, at least coming from India, with a little bit of an advantage, as you said about this Japanese student, that we have a foundation of English. What, accent, no accent, we at least have that advantage. How were the studies? How did you find the academics besides the language?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time, right? You come out of Indian education system to get exposed to the Western education system, which is so different. For the first time, you're asked to write your opinions on things, even though you're doing subjects like computer science, software engineering. I wasn't doing any literature or English or anything, but I remember one of my professors in software engineering would ask us to read two, three papers um, every week and would ask us to write our opinion about those papers and what we agree with or don't agree with, or what might be one or two future directions that one could take that work in types of things. And that suddenly you feel like, oh, so I get to think. For the first time, it's not like I'm not just simply studying and applying what I know, but I'm actually being asked to think. And the assignments would also be nothing that you have done as part of your homeworks. They would be framed very differently. It's not just about testing the application of the concepts, but it's about you advancing those concepts to take it to the next level. So that was another interesting adjustment as well. But I would say every international student probably goes through that, because all the education systems are somewhat different in their own countries. But yeah, that was definitely something that I had to adjust to, and over time, I could see and appreciate why, when you would go through such a process from your kindergarten, that you would be kind of an out of the box thinker. Otherwise, you're just trained to apply what you know and never create something new. To create something new, you have to continuously question the status quo, and that's what the teachers were teaching you, to read a paper which is the state of the art, and to question it, and to ask, to say what can you do to advance it. And that's how you innovate, that's how you think beyond what's out there. Those are the skills that we were never taught back in India, in our education system. You're strong in math, but that's because you've done 100 problems a day, by applying a particular formula, that it becomes second nature to you, that when you see another problem, you know the pattern and you can simply apply that pattern. But when you're asked to create new patterns, you feel so exposed, and that's an adjustment that you I had to make to the education system. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said some very, very important things here. I don't know if you realize, like, you have to question the status quo if you want to learn and innovate. Um, and you're so right about that. Uh, so it was really an eye-opening experience for you, coming from, the different educational system, and here. So then you were getting ready to graduate, Rama.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I was 2 years. Of course, it's a master's program, and I got a job at IBM Research in New York, which was Recruited from school, yes. Um, yeah, it was quite serendipitous. The job announcement was made a year ago in some forum back then. Back then, it was Yahoo groups. I think it was posted in one of the Yahoo groups, news groups. Yeah, and I app- I wrote to that manager 1 year after that was advertised, because that's when I was graduating. Um, just hoping that either that role or some other role like that would be open. And I had actually at that time really didn't even know how much of a big deal it was to land at IBM Research, which was one of the premier institutions of industrial research. Because there was not a whole lot of awareness for me at the time. Internet was just about coming up, and emails were just about being used as a means of communication at workplace, and things were at that level in computing. But it was quite a big deal. Yeah, I did.
So you wrote to them a year ago, and
No, 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 not a year ago. I mean, the advertisement was a year ago, and I wrote when I was about to graduate, saying, I'm graduating now. If you still have that role, I would love to apply for it and be considered. And the manager responded, and it was just so serendipitous. And I was called in for an interview, and I flew into New York, did an interview, 2 full day interview with multiple people. I gave a talk, which was based on my uh, master's thesis that I did, and um, and when I got the offer, I said, "This is the place I'm going to," and moved to New York. And that's, I would say, is one of the turning points in my life, because there I've met so many brilliant minds who are such wonderful role models and mentors, and that kind of shaped my rest of my journey.
so two quick things. They were impressed with your master's thesis, right? Your thesis was on what, Rama? Can you just tell us a little bit?
It was in the field of AI at the time, so it was.
Mhm. Early on, this was before way before Chat GPT and all that. I know. Yeah.
I'm talking about yeah, late 90s. Um, It was on simulated and applying simulated annealing technique for solving iterative refinement problems. So, I took, I believe, five or so of examples and built it using rule-based techniques at the time, expert systems, yeah, and using simulated annealing, which was one of the iterative refinement algorithms. You perturb the state, and you take it to the next level. Um, yeah, so that's expert-based, rule-based system is what I had worked on. Um,
And that got them attracted.
yeah, I suppose that I gave a talk about that, and they asked various questions in the interview, and luckily I landed that. Uh,
And this was in where? In Poughkeepsie, New York? Where? What part of New York was this in?
Yorktown Heights. That's where the research headquarters was for IBM.
So then, yeah, it is. So then you moved to New York, and you spent how many years there, Rama?
I was there maybe 10, 12 years, 12 years probably in IBM Research there, IBM Research in New York. Then here in the Bay Area, California, I moved after, by then, several years into it. I got married, and my husband's job brought us here. But I moved, when I moved to IBM Research here in Silicon Valley, which is called the IBM Almaden Research Center.
Uh, you talked that it was probably one of the best experiences of your life there, and you won some real big accolades there. Why? Why was it such a great experience? And just if you were to kind of distill that for us, why was it such a great experience? And and you really shined out there in that environment. I mean, you won some great accolades there. So how was that environment, and what made that happen?
So first of all, it was a research lab, research organization, right? So it was filled with people who were brilliant, people who had PhDs in material science and chemistry and mathematics and computer science and robotics and AI and operations research, and you name a field. These were brilliant people at the time. That was the destination, either Bell Labs or Xerox Labs or IBM Research. These were some of the eminent industrial research labs, and great minds who would, once they graduate from their PhDs, would end up there. And these are people who were doing some phenomenal work, changing the course of the industry. Inventions of so many kinds. From dynamic access memory to inventing operations research algorithms. There were people who invented Fortran, people who invented some of the groundbreaking algorithms in operations research, uh, and just brilliant, brilliant people. And they're all the time talking about their research, and there were many talks being held by various researchers from academia and industry. So you're just in that environment that is so inspiring, and you're constantly getting those inputs, uh, seeing the possibilities, how to do proper research, how to write, how to question when you are reading, how to find gaps in the state of the art where you can initiate a new idea or a project. So I learned a lot from being in such an environment, and got a lot of great mentoring guidance from so many brilliant minds. I was just enjoying the journey. That's all. Doing um, what I could do best, and just continuously learning from everybody around me.
Yeah. You touched on a point about great mentors, and this is a topic that we bring up with a lot of our guests because young people need to know that. Uh, you know, mentors come in many different shapes, sizes, forms. You know, official, non-official. Like your brother's been kind of a mentor to you. What do you think is the role of mentors? Generally, what is your view in your life and just overall? This is for our listeners to know, young women or young men who are just starting the journey.
I think mentors play an uh, you know unbelievable important role. Why they're vitally important for anybody's growth, uh, I don't even go to success, actually growth. We just kind of can there, because we all need. If I didn't have my brother leading the way, showing the way, I don't know what goals I would have set for myself. I would have had to figure things out for myself. That would probably have been a lot harder, and I would probably have been limited by what I could have been exposed to back in the day. Um, so, first of all, they show you the way. And even throughout my career, I've always looked up to people uh, who've been there maybe 2 to 3 steps ahead of me. And I would just kind of try to understand what did they do to get there. Just go ask them and say, what were some of the things, and then observe them. Many things, just asking is one thing, but observing them and how they conduct themselves. Like, let's say if you are in a meeting and you are really inspired by how a person is communicating their ideas, then you just kind of observe how they're connecting different ideas and thoughts, and how they're taking the conversation to the next level. All those things, they just help you. Mentors in many direct and indirect ways. You can always take inspiration from anybody. Actually, you take the best out that they have, and you imbibe those things, and there is um, you grow. That's the best that can happen to you, right? You know your moral compass and your principles ground tell you what's right, what's wrong, and what's right and what's good in good quality in a particular person. You can always take that out and leave the rest, and imbibe that. So mentors play a critical role. I mean, if there is anybody out there uh, who don't realize the value of having good mentors, I would say it's about time. You know, it doesn't have to be somebody whom you actually even know, or meet. It could be somebody who you're just inspired by, right? But if you're able to meet them and talk with them and actually have a more regular kind of a professional mentor mentee type of a relationship, that's fine too. But there are many ways to do it. But having that a role model to look up to and to learn from is absolutely critical to one's growth, I would say.
Well, some of the points you made are some very important points, especially for our listeners. Is you said they show you the way, help you with your growth. No, and one should not be afraid of asking them or reaching out to them. And the other thing you said is, if you're in a meeting and you observe somebody who is, great at communicating, observe and watch and maybe learn, and also look at people who are 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, is something you said, and not be insecure and maybe asking them or emulating them. Right, Rama?
Absolutely. I'll say I have so many doors opened up for me by mentors over the years. Either that they would uh, connect me with somebody else. They would, I know my professional network had grown significantly because of that. Um, they would ask me to come talk about um, my work, maybe some in keynote speeches and those sort of things. Doors opened up for me. It's just incredible, and overall, you don't have to go through some of the things. You can short circuit your way by learning from from their own experiences, right? um, it's much costlier and time consuming to learn from our own experiences. But if you can learn from others' experience and really kind of short circuit some of those learnings, um, to get to where you need to go faster, why would you not do that? And there are so many people who are so generous with their time and advice. You only have to ask. And the one good thing about asking somebody for their advice, even if it is your adversary, is that when you ask them for your advice, they'll more likely than not be more open and willing and share their wisdom with you. That's the nature of being humble and asking somebody for their advice. And in the process, you may even turn an adversary into your ally.
Wow, that's a great point for some of our politicians to learn also. But just for people, even if it's your adversary or competition or whatever you want to call it, ask them for advice, and they'll open up and maybe become better with you. But that's a great piece of advice, because most people are very afraid because of the wall, or whether it's your competitor in a company or.
Yeah, if you put the roles aside and if you treat everybody as people who have accomplished something, right? I mean, if somebody is in a competitor, mm, you know, you there are forums where you can actually, if you invite people onto a panel, and you're hosting a very engaging panel, you ask important questions, and people are more willing than not to share their thoughts and ideas with you, because it's about the person and the journey, as opposed to your position and role and title and those sort of things at that time, right?
Yeah, that's a great advice, Rama. Rama, you touched on one inflection point or important point in your life, which is job at IBM. Do you think there have been any other inflection points, because people learn from other people's inflection points or decisions that they made? Any other that comes to mind besides the position that you got at IBM? Moving to the West Coast, was it an inflection point?
Well, these are all important points in just life events that happened, I suppose. And you can always learn from everything that happened. I'll interpret inflection point into something that that I did that had an impact, positive impact on me, and I'll share a couple of things. A few years into my being at IBM Research, I decided to go study MBA. Um, and I did that at NYU Stern School of Business, and I graduated at the top of the class with the highest GPA. So that's something that I'm quite proud of, uh, because it's something I was doing while I was working, but I was placed at the highest in GPA, in the entire graduating class, including the full time, part time, and all of that. I had such wonderful experience being a student again after 5 years of working or something, and learning something new. Uh, MBA is a very different type of a curriculum than the more traditional engineering or computer science type of a discipline. It's more case study based. You work in groups and all of that. So I learned many those kinds of interesting skills, and came back with a toolbox of methods, methodologies, and toolkits that I can apply to my research. Although I didn't end up changing particularly my job per se after I did the MBA, it was a very enriching experience for me. So that's one thing. Being named an IBM fellow was another thing that I'm quite proud of. And now at NVIDIA, I'm so inspired by our CEO, Jensen Huang, who is such a brilliant visionary of the high performance computing, and is spearheading the era of AI, yeah, with these high performance GPUs. There is so much to get inspired by. And this is another uh, turning point, or rather a change that happened, that I'm quite enjoying.
Well, that's fantastic. So you went to Stern, and you didn't need to. Would you say self-learning is very important also, rather because that's part of your life's mo. That's one thing I've seen, right?
Yeah. I was deciding whether I wanted to go do a PhD. I was leaning more toward a PhD, and but somehow I eventually decided to go do an MBA. I think, yeah, that's right. I mean, learning from being a lifelong learner is very important for us to stay relevant in our roles, in our jobs, and for us to stay fresh. And the field that we are in is such that if we don't actually upgrade our skills and be continuous learners, we cannot actually survive and do a good job. So in many ways, it's both driven by the internal curiosity, but also the environment and the industry that we are in, and the pace at which things are moving also require you, necessitate you to be on top of things and be a lifelong learner. So both factors contribute to that.
That's true. Uh, Rama, can you share a couple of your favorite childhood memories that you have? There's sometimes songs have things, sometimes different things. Just share a couple of them. That tells you a lot about the person also.
Good question. Um, I would say, my grandfather used to be Harikatha Bhagavatar. Let me tell you what that means. That means they tell the stories of from our epics and Indian epics and such, um, in musical form. So they write, compose, and sing in various Carnatic ragas, um, and the story is told through that story. It's called Harikatha. That means you're telling the story of Hari, the god, or any kind of it would even be a social reformist or anything. It's just the name came about um, from being from a spiritual side of things, but it could be on anything. Um, so my grandfather used to do those kinds of things. He was a traveling musician, if you will, doing those kinds of um, shows, and he would do those things all around Andhra because it's in Telugu. He wrote and composed songs and everything in Telugu, and he used to have many disciples who would come stay in his home and learn from him. So there was once when I was young, he was a principal of one of the Harikatha schools in a place in interior Andhra. It was called Kapileswarapuram. There used to be, it's one of the only Harikatha schools that was in Andhra where he was the principal and he used to teach. So I happened to visit for a summer vacation, and those are some memories etched in my those episodes from that time etched in my memory, where I would go. There used to be beautiful river. It was like those idyllic times. The whole world was changing, but he was from a different era and different time, and that village and that whole setup was from a different uh, time, and people were still learning as a full time that music. And I would go just to kind of observe how he would teach, and they would just sit and sing ragas the whole morning, and then they'll focus on some other aspects of the harikatha thing in the afternoon. And his it was like a gurukula design system where some of the students would just live in his house because their parents could not afford any accommodations or anything, so they would just stay in my grandfather's house and do chores around the house, and that's how they would contribute to the food that and the accommodation that my grandfather was providing them, and they would learn in the morning and the evening. So it was a very different time, different world. um, it was and we would eat in banana leaf, on a banana leaf. My grandma would cook this delicious meals on, there was not even a gas stove at the time. Um, so it was like, these are some very fun memories.
Wow. I'm just visualizing it. It's like a movie in a way.
Yeah, yeah, and there would be there would be a well, the water, because there was a river, right?
Or it was just you had to pull the pulley.
Yeah, you have to pull it with the pulley, but the water table was so rich back then, and this small village, was by the river. Um, the water levels, you could just take your bucket and just dip it in the well. That it you did not even need a pulley or anything. And my grandmother would put some of the vegetables in the well to keep them fresh. It was the one of those memories that I really really cherish. There's a you can imagine banana trees, and you would just cut them fresh from your backyard for your lunch meal every day, and you would go to the river in the morning for a walk or whatever, and then you would do music, singing, and teaching, and have a very simple life.
But those were the great days, though. No texting, no WhatsApping, no none of.
No, the only thing there was All India Radio. That's it.
I mean, Sayani. But anyway, that's a whole different story. But so music was a big part of grandparents and others in your life. It's been a big part.
Yeah, it's I didn't get as much of that musical genes, other than the interest part of it. Yes, yes, but my grandfather had that great tradition.
Wow, wow, amazing. I'm just like I said. Sometimes you can visualize that was a fantastic. Uh, so let's you obviously have achieved an amazing thing so far, but there's so much more of Rama's journey still ahead. Now, obviously, there's nobody who can predict even 20 years or, but what, where do you see your journey going, Rama?
Good question. I really, I think I don't think you can really plan exactly, where you would be a few years from now. You can set reasonable goals, uh, but I enjoy the journey. And I hope the best for the destination, but I just enjoy the journey. Where would I be? I have really no idea. I all I can say is that I'm enjoying what I'm doing quite a bit, and we are in an era where um, things are changing so much, and AI is opening up so many possibilities. The era of AI is here. Every day there is a new invention, new innovation that's happening. Be it in how many advancements are happening in the way we can now understand natural language, and how human and computer interaction is changing with more natural language and multimodality. We're now able to process and quickly search for information um, in various formats in audio, video, and it's opening up so many use cases and possibilities. These are, I cannot think of more exciting times in my career time. Internet was exciting. It took a while. It was slow. Slowly, it became big. But this time around, the AI revolution is so fast paced. It's hard to keep up, almost with the pace at which the innovations are coming out. So it's so exciting. We're all students learning in our jobs, and we have to adapt, we have to learn, we have to figure out the path as to what makes sense to do next, and charter our course. So I don't think anybody can predict where the future will be. What we can say is that we are in for some really exciting times ahead. And of course, lots of interesting challenges, societal, ethical, and legal. Many kinds of challenges will be brought to the forefront by the advancements that and the breakthrough innovations that AI is bringing. So, as a society, we all have to figure out and navigate this space carefully so that we can still keep the humanness in us, and still leverage the productivity gains and automations and efficiency gains that AI can offer. But the world will be a very different place a few decades from now, mm, for sure, with the advancements in AI. It'll be more symbiotic between AI and humans. So I hope it will be uh, we end up figuring out a way in such a way that it will be for the better, for the betterment for the human society, and that we don't become slaves to the social media and to all of the negative things, and are able to somehow guardrail and curtail those things and still navigate to advance the society while keeping the humanness of it. So I think just being part of that journey is exciting enough.
So you're just enjoying the ride. I'm with you on that. Uh, just since we've taken you into the future, we'll just take you very briefly for a very short period to the past. If just pretend this is Rama, which is me, graduating out of your engineering college, what would be the one or two pieces of advice that you would give her, knowing what you know today?
Yeah, as you know, as I have mentioned during the course of this interview, I wish I had been exposed to my own creativity and thinking early on in my life. The education system and the circumstances were such that you're not encouraged to ask many questions. You're encouraged to learn, just listen, memorize, or apply. So one, I don't know that I could have changed it myself, because when you are in an environment where everything is given to you in that format, you just kind of follow it. But if I could go back and change one of the things or give myself advice, that's what I would say. Independent of what your circumstances are, you do that soul searching and ask yourself, how could things be done differently and better? Because I can see in the way the society was run, in the way many things that we interacted with in those days were so inefficient. You have to get a deed done for buying a house or selling a house. There was so much red tape and processes. Um, Nobody ever probably were given the task to step back and think, how could you simplify? What does customer experience mean? How can you improve the process? All those innovations of Six Sigma, quality, all of them came um, from the Western way of thinking and the philosophy. We've lost our way in creativity, and that questioning the status quo, as I was saying before, somewhere along the way during the colonial rule, and have gotten into this habit of just kind of being note takers. And to my young self, I would give myself the advice that you got to somehow break out of that, and and bring out the creative side of things, ask those questions, be opinionated, be confident to state your opinion that's grounded in facts, of course. You know, I think that's very important to have that open brain from childhood. You can learn it when you are an adult, but it's not the same as you learning the principles of an open brain from your childhood. And that's an advantage that children that I see, and my daughter growing up here, and through the curriculum here, I could see the difference of what it does to one's mind. And I wish we and many Indians in the growing up in those days, or even now in some of the education system that refuses to change, um, would take take a note of.
Well, those are great advices. Be opinionated, question status quo. I think you're absolutely right on that. Uh, Rama, we at the end of the show we asked two questions, the same questions to everybody. Just very brief. It's a brief response to the lightning questions. What is your definition of Indianness?
I would say it's staying true to your principles, staying grounded in your with your in your moral compass.
Very good. Staying true to your principles and staying grounded. Excellent. Last question. Not somebody from your family, has to be a living person, could be from India or of Indian origin anywhere in the world that you admire.
Well, there are so many. Why only one?
Okay, you can, we'll make an exception. How about three, Rama? In your case, we'll make an exception. Give us three.
Well, look at some of the CEOs that are running the tech companies here. Arvind Krishna, Satya Nadella, of course, and um, Sundar Pichai. Really out there running such big companies, multinational companies. They all come from similar kind of humble roots in India, and made it big and are showing the way of innovation. Um, and Jensen Huang, I would say.
Uh, he's not of Indian origin, but okay, we will adopt him. No worries, we'll adopt him as. Yeah, he's definitely inspirational. I agree with you. Yeah, wonderful. Rama, this has been just amazing. Thank you for opening up. Sometimes sharing is not that easy, but it's obviously capturing your journey, but also for the other people that you're inspiring, because there are a lot of people who get inspired by you. So thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sanjay, for having me on your podcast and taking me on a journey of my childhood and all those memories. Look, I don't know at the end of the day, if I don't, I think this would be the story of many immigrants who came to the United States and are working here. It's it's probably nothing um, that dramatic. It's uh, very linear in the way it played out. Um, in a healthy, nurturing family, middle class, and then coming here to study, and it's a classic story of an immigrant. So in that sense, it's really probably nothing different or new. Um, but I hope there are things and nuggets in there that your listeners and viewers would find valuable. But thank you for taking me through this journey. I don't think I have ever really gone into talking about myself so much. It's a little uncomfortable actually to to talk about yourself so much. Hey, what did I do? What's so big deal about it for somebody to spend an hour of their time to listen to all of this? Um, but if somebody could actually find value in it, that
Me, I found tremendous value, Rama. I learned things. I mean, you're too humble, because the challenges you faced, and you are obviously being very polite in some of the things. It's not easy. You being an IBM fellow, coming all this way. In many ways, it's still largely a male dominated environment. So what you've done, it's you're too humble. So really thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing your story.
thank you, Sanjay.